Hi, my name is Taylor Price. I'm a senior at MSU, English major and philosophy and law minor, a SAR peer educator, which means sexual assault and relationship violence peer ed. I facilitate conversations about sexual misconduct, rape, and relationship violence with incoming students and letting them know how common these crimes are, unfortunately, on our campuses today. I'm also an intern at the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office Sexual Assault Unit, and both of these positions I feel have really built a very strong platform for this project. What is human trafficking? It is defined as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through use of force, fraud, coercion, or the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude. So, unfortunately, trafficking largely goes unnoticed. This hidden population that it works through involves commercial sex industry, agriculture, factories, hotel, restaurant businesses, domestic workers, marriage brokers, and some adoption firms. Individuals who are trafficked have many faces. No racial or ethnic group is specifically targeted. However, there are people who are more vulnerable, people who live in a war torn area or poor areas that are more commonly subjected to human trafficking. So the historical context of human trafficking and or rape is that they've both always been used as a weapon of war, and that unfortunately they are very strong weapons of war. Rape and human trafficking, again, just to reiterate, are both one and the same. Rape and human trafficking are both sexual misconduct without any consent given. These crimes, unfortunately, have been neglected over time and now are just being kind of brought into the light. So, why were they neglected for such a long time? Unfortunately, the nature of these crimes are one of the biggest factors, being that it is such a private crime. Not it's not also it has not also been recognized as a crime for such a long period of time. It was neglected until about World War II, where we saw a lot of reform. Um, there were several prosecutions condemning wartime rape around that area of time. Especially in 1990, the IHL prohibited finally the infliction of sexual violence upon enemy civilians, members of armed forces, and so on. Unfortunately, for most of history, rape was accepted as an express form of crimes against humanity until more recently, when rape was recognized as an international crime and was listed in statutes. So the obstacles of prosecuting human trafficking and or rape crimes. In general, unfortunately, these crimes can be very difficult for a number of reasons. However, when handling a case that are committed as strategic acts of war, can prove to be even more difficult than just your everyday sexual misconduct case. So again, the nature of the crime and proving lack of consent is very, very hard to figure out in these private areas. Culture also is a big background with this as well. A lot of people do not want to speak forward to rape or will not condone this. Rape and war. So both function off power and control, just as sexual misconduct always has. This tactic is really boiling down to gaining more power and fear in the enemy so that they can gain the upper hand. All sexual assault breaks down to power and control, not just the context of war. Unfortunately, again, this has been such an effective tool throughout history because of this. Even in the document, the United Nations asserts that rape committed during war is often intended to terrorize the population, break up families, destroy communities, and in some instances change the ethnic makeup of the next generation, which really sits down through people whom are in these wars and makes them fear this type of violence. So, rape, trafficking, and imperialism. I would like to go as far as to say that this is used as a form of genetic biological imperialism in order to, again, maintain dominance. We see that power and control again. This is through unintentional pregnancy, perhaps strategically diseasing other groups of people, destroying a family's solidarity as a unit, comprising their future generations. These crimes attack all aspects of life: culture, family, safety, happiness, well being, etc. So, the global context of human trafficking history is that, again, unfortunately, it's very widespread and common. Right now, there's Darfur, Rwanda, Guatemala, China, Russia, Uzbekistan, Iran, North Korea, Sudan, and Zimbabwe. They're countries in which have very high population of human trafficking within war zones and just in general. So, these zones face insecurity and instability from the region, fear of rape, forcing flight from villages and losing population. The majority of these cultures place high value of virginity and chastity, which also means that this type of crime would be very detrimental toward them. Majority of survivors, again, are killed due to these cultural differences. So, is human trafficking as a whole still a prominent tool of war in today's world? Absolutely, and that's what this presentation is here for you today. Human trafficking and rape in the context of today, speaking of which, the reality of these situations, again, is that these crimes have not gone away. In fact, they're still extremely prominent at all rates, whether it be in the context of war or everyday civilian life. Many people are targeted and continue to face uncertainty because of their victimization. 20,000 people a year are taken into sex trafficking in America alone, most victims being 5 to 6 years old. And when we are in times, not we, but certain countries are in times of war, it is absolutely more than 20,000 people annually being brought into these situations. Again, young children, but most people, again, these crimes do not discriminate. They take in pretty much everyone, which is disturbing. How does this crime violate human rights overall? So it terrorizes not only the victim on several levels, but also their entire community and family through domination, humiliation, and power to both, again, the victim and their family members. In a lot of these male-dominated cultures, we see that their husbands, fathers, and sons feel very inefficient because they're unable to protect their own wives, daughters, and children. So overall, this creates an environment in which people constantly are in fear of their own lives. They can't make their own choices. They have no freedom. So that would definitely violate their human rights as a whole and shake a lot of people to their core. The reality of life for victims of these crimes is that they face a lot of unfortunate events because of this. Death by their perpetrator, death by their family or cultural societies, suicide, disownment from family, mutilation, psychological abuse, and manipulation, sexual assault. It's really unfortunate, but those victims don't just face that. Most of them never even get to escape human trafficking and are unfortunately brought to their own demise because of these brutalized abuse tactics and assault tactics brought upon them. So the aftermath of severe violence, survivors of these egregious crimes create large amount of traumas because of these crimes. They find distrust in systems and are in constant fear for their own safety and probably those around them as well. At the end of wars, even and conflicts, rape and sexual violence perpetrated against women and girls leaves a permanent mark, both physically and psychologically. Unwanted pregnancies, again, just to reiterate, sexually transmitted diseases that are normally brought forth strategically, victim shaming, stigmatization, and other types of ostracizing of women. Sexual violence may also persist following the conflict, often a consequence of impunity or due to government and societal instabilities. As we know in American society, sexual assault has not left, it is still here. There have been many treaties and any other instruments particularly relevant to trafficking and making strides to move forward, those of which are listed. When looking forward, ways in which we can provide more victim advocacy and improve the future so that these crimes go away is to add more reform to what we already have, add more legislation that would be more effective, continue and provide more victim advocacy. So in conclusion, rape and human trafficking is a crime that has been defined in international law as a crime against humanity, which is very fitting. While there has been several treaties and initiatives to push back this issue into the dust, it's not happening, and it will continue to happen until all perpetrators are held fully accountable for their actions. So reform is absolutely needed and necessary in these instances. Thank you for your time.